Hey everyone, it's Jason from EskimoTV.net, and today I'm going to be reviewing Final Destination Bloodlines. This is the 6th entry in the supernatural horror franchise, and while it certainly doesn't reinvent the wheel, it does manage to offer enough dumb, gory fun for horror fans. Now, full disclosure, I only recently watched the original Final Destination film, and I didn't grow up with all of these movies, so I don't carry the same nostalgic reverence that many fans might. That said, I actually found myself enjoying Bloodlines just a hair more than that 2000 cult classic. The setup is familiar. Someone has a premonition about an impending deadly event, tries to stop it, and death then comes knocking in creatively gruesome ways. This time around, our main character, Stephanie, who's played by Caitlin Santa-Wana, is having reoccurring nightmares about her grandmother Iris when she was younger, who narrowly avoids dying in a 1968 Skyview tower that collapses, saving a few people who should have died alongside her. The film kicks off with a suspenseful 20-minute introduction, masterfully edited and scored, setting the tone with effective dread as Iris, who is afraid of heights, ascends the doomed tower while on a surprise date. The absurdity of these death setups is absolutely crazy. There's a penny thrown by a bratty kid that triggers a chain reaction of this whole tower falling down. Needless to say, there is a strong suspension of disbelief that you have to have going into these movies, and if you don't, you will be quite disappointed. But if you can ignore logic and just buy into what this movie is telling you, there is much fun to be had, and I did have a good time with this movie overall. If you're on board with the franchise's Ruby Goldberg style kills, you'll likely have a good time with Bloodlines. What sets this movie apart is its subversion of expectations. Unlike prior entries where characters see future premonitions and then tries to stop all these people from dying, this film flips the script as Stephanie sees a past premonition that her grandmother had, which leads her to discover that her family was actually never meant to exist. The grandma who saved herself and other people shouldn't have had families. They should have died at that point. And so now death is coming, knocking on their door. Caitlin Santa-Wana does a great job as Stephanie. She's gaslit, dismissed, and called crazy for believing that death is coming after her and her family. Watching people finally believe her is surprisingly really satisfying to watch. Gabrielle Rose delivers a memorable performance as Iris, a woman driven to madness after decades of trying to outwit death. I do have one spoiler point that I want to bring up, and so if you don't want to know any spoilers, you can fast forward to this part of the video. I'll put the time code like right here. I did want to mention that one plot point that may irk some people is Iris, the grandma's, sudden decision to stop fighting death. She chooses to die in front of her granddaughter, who isn't really buying in initially to all of this idea of death and him coming after him, her, whatever, coming after all these people. She decides to let herself die in order to prove to her granddaughter that death is real. While this creates a strong visual element and kind of shocking, kind of a neat jump scare at this point in the film, the logic behind her decision to do this feels a little shaky. Her death essentially dooms the rest of her bloodline, which is why this film is called Final Destination Bloodlines. She has spent decades protecting her family, and now just to prove to her granddaughter that death is real, she's willing to sacrifice herself. It's a frustrating moment unless you accept that she's just simply grown too tired of fighting or was sick of people thinking that she was this crazy old lady. But the question I had was her demise worth putting the rest of her family in danger? It seemed a bit off to me, considering how hard she fought to stay alive for so many decades. Now, the second half of this movie it's not as strong, I'm gonna be honest. Once the setup is done, it just becomes a march of death scenes. You enter a room, there's a trap that goes off, next person, rinse and repeat. It is, I'll admit, entertaining, but it does start to feel a bit formulaic and repetitive. Fortunately, the movie doesn't overstay its welcome at just under 1 hour and 50 minutes. While I won't spoil exactly what happens with the very end of the film, I'll say the ending felt like a missed opportunity. It wraps up just a little too neatly, a little too clean. I wish they had gone for something a bit more ambiguous or even maybe a cliffhanger. It just feels a little too easy for the writers to do what they end up doing with our characters. Final Destination Bloodlines won't convert any skeptics. If you are not a fan of the previous films, you probably won't be a fan of this film. But as someone who didn't grow up with these movies and have only seen the first one just a few days ago, I'll admit I was entertained. The opening is gripping, the characters are decent, and despite some dips in the second half of the film, I still enjoyed the overall ride that I went on. Final Destination Bloodlines may not be as clever or as impactful as horror staples like those first 3 Saw movies that I really like. Those are nostalgic films for me. I grew up watching those, but it's entertaining enough thanks to its pacing, visceral kills, and slight narrative twists that they do with this film. If I was to give the first 2000 film a B-, I'd give this one a solid B. It's got gory fun, a few surprises, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. Just don't drop any pennies from tall buildings. And that'll do it for my review of Final Destination Bloodlines. I hope you all enjoyed this review. If you did, please smash that like button. You can also consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more videos like this in your feed. Like my shirt says here, this film will be out in theaters May 16th. And so you can go check it out actually this weekend if you are interested. Let me know what you think about this movie in the comments below, or what you're thinking about it going in. I would love to know your thoughts in the comments below. And until next time, this is Jason Escamilla from EskimoTV.net.